Does that make sense? Okay. What else? Yeah.
When the master in MapReduce has to, decide the locality and also the uniformity of the tasks on the mapper, is that also a latency throughput kind of like trade-off? Because if you try to put them all into one place, even though the data is there, and you load up those cores, it's underutilizing everything else.
Utilization is another, let's see, what does utilization trade off with? Capacity, I guess, right? So on the one hand, it would be great if you had enough excess capacity that you could deal with bursts.
Yeah.
But if you had enough excess capacity that you could deal with bursts, that means you're usually not using your resources,
Yeah, exactly.
right? You're wasting all this stuff. Whereas if you have high utilization, which means you're getting your money worth out of your servers, you probably don't have any excess capacity.
Yeah.
Right? So that's actually a really good trade-off to mention. Yeah.
What's the distinction between Synod and Paxos?
Yeah, great question. So Synod, because Elizabeth Amber was trying to be cute, is the name he gave to the single decree Paxos. That you have one job and it's to decide one thing that we studied at great length in this class. Right, so he called that Synod, the Synod protocol. And then typically when people say Paxos, they mean practical Paxos, multi-Paxos. Because you would never do Synod or naive multi-Paxos, it would be too slow. But these distinctions don't, I won't say Synod on the exam, I'll say Paxos.
So when you say Paxos, is multi-Paxos?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the panel review that was posted on Piazza, there's a section on divergence. I've asked a couple of people who don't really seem to remember what that section was. Did we ever go over repair strategies and how to handle divergence issues for the customer?
Well, yeah, I think all that it is that that's a word that we haven't really used in this class, but it certainly is a concept that we use, right?
So
Divergence is a word we use when replicas don't agree about their stored values,
Okay.
right? So in general, anti-entropy and read repair are strategies that we use to make sure that replicas eventually converge. Right? So that would be the opposite of eventual consistency would be divergence. Right? So, right, as we saw, there's usually any practical quorum-based system uses two strategies. You immediately try to disseminate the data, because the sooner you get it out, the better. But that might not work because there might be a partition. And obviously you're going to return success even if there is a partition because you're an available system. And yet when that partition heals, you still have this contract that you have to be eventually consistent. So you probably try to get it out there as fast as you can, and then you also periodically gossip. Yeah.
Just to get a clear definition, what exactly is anti-entropy?
Anti-entropy, aka gossip, is a so-called epidemic protocol in which nodes periodically wake up, pick a random neighbor or a collection of random neighbors, and compare notes. Right? So it's a synonym to gossip. And gossip is probably a better word, right? It sounds less like we're trying to sound smart when we say gossip, right? Because we don't need to sound smart. What else? Okay, I'm going to do my thing. Anybody have one last question? Yeah.
Could you give a quick rundown? This might take too long. Could you give a quick rundown of how Paxos works with knowledge theory?
No. I don't mean no, I don't want to do that for you. I mean, no, I can't do it for you.
Okay.
But come to lab sometime, we'll try to work that out. I gave you the intuition, right? Which is that you would probably need to do some kind of quantifier alternation where you're saying everybody knows that someone knows if there was an accepted value. And because I know that, then I know that it's fussy. Maybe we can work something out.
There's another question on here that Pete and I can't figure out. Can violations of monotonic reads occur across a partition Y or Y no?
Can violations of monotonic reads occur across a partition? I guess I don't understand what the across a partition. I don't even know which kind of partition is meant by that. So maybe what you want to do is try plugging in both versions and seeing if you can answer the question. I don't know. Like I said, your mileage may vary with these things. I'm not sure what was in this person's soul when they wrote that question.
You mentioned it
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. So here's a picture, I didn't even erase it. Let's say there's these events 1, 2, and 3. There's a set of events 1, 2, and 3, and there's this, and maybe this might be Alice knows about events 1, 2, and 3. Bob knows about events 2 and 3. Well, Bob's knowledge is like contained in Alice's knowledge. So if we were to assign some kind of clock to Bob, we might say 2, and for Alice we might say 3, and we can compare these numbers in much the same way that we can compare these sets, right? Because as we saw very early in the class, set containment forms a partial order as well, right? Where there's like, there's A, B, and C, and there's a set containing A and B, which is strictly bigger than A and strictly bigger than B, but incomparable to C and so on.
Right, so it'd be at like 5 and 6. You could
Yeah,
make that
exactly.
correlation.
Okay, so without further ado, I want to do this weird thing that I used to do with my advisor. Okay, so once upon a time, many, many years ago, there was a place called the land of the two valleys. And it was a land with two valleys. And in these valleys lived two tribes who knew about each other's existence, but hadn't actually ever seen each other, because these valleys were completely isolated by a spiky forest on top of the hill. This hill in between them was big enough and spiky enough that it was not crossable, but it was small enough that if they were to go to the tops of their respective mountains, they had line of sight. Okay? And it was like, it was the Fagawi tribe, and it was the tribe of Shabazz. Okay? And occasionally, they needed to communicate information, tribe to tribe. Right? So this might be information about which plants were poisonous or edible, or which animals were dangerous, or which other tribes to avoid, or something like that. Occasionally there was a need to communicate information. Obviously they didn't have particularly good communication media, and whatever they had to invent. And so it's going to turn out that they were only ever able to communicate one bit of information at a time. But this was in the olden days. We had all the time in the world. So the fact that you could only communicate one bit a day is fine, because we can take all time to communicate information about a whole plan, right? And so the strategy in the earliest days of communication between the Fagawi tribe and the tribe of Shabazz was that one of them, if they wanted to communicate a bit of information, let's imagine without loss of generality that these guys had the information, they were trying to communicate it over here. One of these people would walk up to the top of the mountain, build a little fire, and throw some leaves on the fire that would create a big puff of smoke. That puff of smoke, now it was never cloudy here, so you always knew that if someone from the Fagawi tribe had gone up to the top of the mountain at the right time, they would do this every morning. If that person was up at the top of the mountain, they would surely see the puff of smoke. Right? So that puff of smoke is a way for the tribe of Shabazz to communicate a bit of information to the Fagawi tribe. Which is pretty cool, right? But it wasn't that cool, right? Because it was a really fragile system. It only worked if the Fagawi tribesmen arrived at the top of the mountain before the Shabazz tribesmen did. Because otherwise, if this guy got there first, the puff of smoke goes, it's gone. This guy comes up, looks around, no puff of smoke, goes down, no bit of information. Information's lost forever. Right? So this worked, but it involved F sort of walking up to the bar first, and then S coming along. You buy that? And they called this method of communication message passing. And unsurprisingly, it looked it looked like it had the same shortcomings of the message passing systems that we use today, right? So if I want Sam to send a message to Fred, first, Fred has to open a socket and listen on the socket, and he has to be there alive, listening on the socket, at the time that Sam opens the socket and sends a message on it. So provided that Sam and Fred are both around at the same time, and Fred begins first, message passing works, and can communicate bits of information that are vital to our survival as a species. Right? Do you believe me that this weird construct with a puff of smoke is similar to the message passing we do in CPK and stuff? Yeah, that's kind of cool, huh? So this worked, and for eons they did this, but they missed a lot of bits of information, and this was unfortunate that a lot of poisonous plants got eaten and things like this, and a lot of unsafe animals were taken in as pets, and so on and so forth. Right? So after a while, somebody from the tribe of Shabazz had this idea, right? Which is that, like, what if instead of doing a little puff of smoke, we go up to the mountain at the start of day, and we build like a huge signal fire, like in Return of the King or whatever. We build a giant signal fire, and we burn it all day. Well, that's cool, right? Because then this person can come up the mountain whenever they want and see if there's a huge fire burn on the mountain, or there is or there isn't. If it's there, it's burning all day. So I can like wait till 5 p.m. because I'm lazy, check, and the bit gets transmitted. So that worked. That was great. And the tribe of Shabazz called this, what do you think they called this?
Wasting resource.
They actually called it storage. Okay? They decided to call it storage. But then they began to scrutinize this protocol, and they began to realize that although storage, that is to say, somebody comes along and puts something down, and then somebody comes along and reads it when they feel like it, achieves exactly the same thing as message passing. Somebody sends something to somebody who was waiting for it. They're exactly the same, who cares? But they're tools of each other. Because it turns out that this works only if the person from the tribe of Shabazz gets up the mountain first. Right? Like, what happens on those days when this person woke up a little early, couldn't sleep, goes up the mountain thinking if it's there, I'll see it, doesn't see shit, goes back down the mountain, then the signal fire goes up and burns all day. So storage seemed cool. One of the cool things about the storage that made it, in some sense, strictly richer than message passing was that the person who lit the signal fire could leave and it could keep transmitting information. So that was nice. But we had the same problem where this thing is just fundamentally not commutative. What order these things happen in affects the result. And it's very hard to control the order in which these things happen, because to control the order in which these things happen, you would need to communicate at least a bit of information, right? And that's what we're trying to like do in the first place. Anybody have any thoughts on this? What else? Yeah.
F can set a fire to let them know that they're up on the hill. And
F
then
can set a fire to let them know that. But remember, okay,
and then
so.
S can set their fire.
So you only have one kind of fire.
But that wouldn't work, because if F came up and set a fire and then split, then we'll know that the bit was lost. That helps, right? That's better than nothing, because then at least you would know that the bit was lost. You could try again tomorrow. So that's actually, I had fun of that. That's kind of nice. But I think the obvious next iteration on this is that, so let's see, this was Fugawi, this was Shabazz, and then Fugawi has another idea. It's called the Adirondack chair. And they're like, you know what, forget about all this stuff. Go back to the smoke signals. That's fine. But what we're going to do is, we're going to have like a chair up there. Right? And what we're going to do is we're going to come up and sit in the chair and just wait all day. Right? But then, now we just switch it around again, right? But, what if we had a chair and a bonfire?
Chilling.
That works, right? So, the tribe of Shabazz, they want to send a bit of information. They climb up the mountain, they light a bonfire, whenever it is that they get up there. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes they get there quick. But by the end of the day, there will be a bonfire lit by sundown. Fugawi tribe send somebody up as early as they can. They sit in the chair all day. If they see a fire, they can leave. If they get till sunset and they don't see a fire, there was no bit. The bit was zero. Okay, that's pretty cool. And what did we learn today? Well, we learned that communication and storage are duals. Right? Communication is just what you get when you look at storage in the mirror, or vice versa. It's about who has to arrive at the bar first and who does the waiting. Both suck, because both are extremely sensitive to the order in which things happen. And in worlds that are characterized by uncertainty and partial knowledge, it's very hard to control the order in which things happen. There are ways to do better. Right? Even just in this little mental exercise, we come up with like a kind of hybrid approach that might actually solve this problem, right? A way to get a bit of information communicated between a couple of parties in a way that's ordered and sensitive. And just very quickly, oh, we still have 10 minutes. Does this system where we have a bonfire and an Adirondack chair look like anything you've ever seen? Like number one looked like message passing, I hope you believe me. Number two looked like storing something on a disk or in a KD store. Does this look like anything that you've ever seen? Yeah.
Should like a reliable delivery, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean it's related to reliable delivery, but there's something about permanently posting not just the information. So what's the other thing we learned? Communication storage and tools both suck. It's all about data, right? In distributed systems, most of what we do when we're writing code, most of the computation that we focus on is just setting up the rendezvous of different parties so that they can share data, right? Distributed systems are all about data moving through a system, and very often we get confused by all the sort of code that's all over the system. But the control flow doesn't matter, right? It's the data flow. And if we think about the data, we can start to get creative. Okay, what I think this resembles a little bit is a communication model that's very popular, and is still popular, known as publish subscribe. Right? The idea is you have a logical space, and typically these systems are implemented via mechanisms such as core, or overlay networks, where you have like a logical space where you could say, let's say there's a bit of data about plants. I'm a publisher. I'm from the tribe of Shabazz, and I know something about plants. And I hash that information into the logical place. I know something about plants. And now, here's somebody out here, a consumer, or actually a subscriber, I should say, might have an interest in plants. And so they could hash to the same place their interest in plants. And in that little file or whatever could be their return address. Right? So in some sense, you think about this as like a logical data store that's distributed around the internet. People who know stuff can hash it into a particular logical location. And people who want to know stuff can hash their identity into that same logical location. A periodic process can then wake up and say, oh, S is interested in this data about plants, and send the information to S. And this approach doesn't care if P got there first, or if S got there first. Right? S could go, hey, I'm interested in information about plants before there is any information about plants. And as long as this Adirondack chair sits there, it'll sit there until there's something to learn, and then it'll come back. Right? So PubSub, if done right, doesn't care about the order in which the participants come to the rendezvous. It just sees fit to making the rendezvous happen. And a trick like consistent hashing we can use to make sure that the publishers and the subscribers always hash to the same physical machine, so that this rendezvous, this join, if you like, can be carried out efficiently. It's pretty cool, right? It's all about data and rendezvous. Questions? Questions about anything? All right, I'm gonna let you all go 5 minutes early. Oh wait.
How do you get a job in this stuff as undergrad?
Say again?
How do you get a job in this stuff as
Oh,
undergrad?
that's a great question. You graduate.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding. You don't actually have to graduate. Consider the speakers we had in this class. But if you've come this far, you might as well graduate. You gotta get that book, man, the Cracking the Coding interview book. I wish it weren't true, but you should get the book and you should read it cover to cover. And you will learn as time goes on that connections matter more than anything, and it'll get easier, and you're good, and people will think you're good. But those first couple jobs, you just have to suffer through this gnarly 3-day interview. And mostly you won't hear back. Here's my advice about the job search broadly. Spray the area. Like, the biggest mistake I ever made when hunting for jobs was to like read the recs really closely and decide which job was like the perfect job for me, and then like really sweat it and write a really careful cover letter that talked about how I was the right person. Because that's a job you never hear back from. You don't even get a thank you for the, for the resume. What you should do is not get attached, have a very generic cover letter that you change 1 or 2 sentences. Send out your resume to dozens or even hundreds of places. It's a numbers game, and the numbers game is in the favor of the companies. All you can do to make the numbers game more in your favor is just send out lots of applications. And then, at least in my experience, the jobs that ask you to come in for an interview, you don't even remember applying to them. But who gives a shit? Yeah.
So are you saying publish, subscribe,
That's right. Yeah, so there's some truth in this, right? So send your resume to places and put it somewhere where people can get at it. Right? So yeah, the other nice thing about publish, subscribe, all this stuff is that the subscriber, like the publisher can be dead when the subscriber gets the information. Right? We no longer need to fake share when we have this concept of indirection. Right? So like you post your thing on, put a copy of your resume on your website, and push and pull. There isn't that much else to say. Like. The interviews are extremely arbitrary. You shouldn't feel like when you don't get a job, it's because you performed poorly in the interview. That might be it, but mostly you don't get the job. Right? You make a great many attempts because you have a non-zero probability of getting the job in every attempt. Yeah.
You made a pt2 post about navigating specs and test scripts.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that in the industry? And
the same way you did here. You just complain and complain. And nobody listens, but you feel a little bit better when you complain. I'm kidding, but I'm not kidding. You try to have a good boss and manage your boss to run interference for you. So you deal with the minimum amount of bullshit that you have to get your job done. You try not to be a diva. You try not to be the smart engineering person who all they ever do is complain about the spec writer's not getting it. Yeah, there's got to be some communication across the levels. But at some level, you just prepare for a lifetime of frustration because the bosses. I'm in academia because I hate bosses. Yeah, your experience may be different. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Anybody want to?